December 29, 1972. A Lockheed L-1011 TriStar cuts through the night sky over Florida. Destination, Miami International Airport. On board, 176 souls returning home after Christmas celebrations. Lights blink on the aircraft's wings. Inside the cabin, passengers relax, some still carrying smiles from recent festivities. Children sleep in their parents' laps. Suitcases filled with gifts occupy the overhead compartments. In the cockpit, an experienced crew commands the final descent. Captain Robert Loft, a veteran with over 30,000 flight hours. First Officer Albert Stockstill, a reliable and meticulous pilot. Flight Engineer Donald Repo, the technical expert who knows every system of this brand new aircraft. This TriStar is one of the most modern planes in the sky, equipped with cutting-edge technology and advanced autopilot systems. The mood is calm, routine. The flight from New York has been smooth, and Miami's lights are beginning to appear on the horizon. Families discuss their holiday plans, business travelers review documents. Flight attendants move through the aisles with warm smiles, offering final refreshments before landing. Tower clearance comes through. The crew begins their approach checklist. Flaps extended, speed reduced, everything by the book. Captain Loft calls for the landing gear. First Officer Stockstill reaches for the lever and pulls it down. 3 green lights should illuminate, confirming all 3 landing gear are locked in position. 2 lights turn green. The nose gear light remains dark. Captain Loft stares at the indicator panel. A small green bulb, no bigger than a Christmas light, refuses to illuminate. Is the nose gear actually down and locked, or is it just a burned-out bulb? It's a question that demands an answer before they can land a 200-ton aircraft. The captain makes a decision. He aborts the approach and requests a holding pattern over the dark expanse of the Everglades. They need time to investigate. Flight Engineer Repo removes the light assembly, examining it closely. Perhaps it's just the bulb. A simple mechanical issue, nothing serious. But in the cockpit, attention shifts. The crew becomes absorbed in this minor malfunction. They discuss possibilities, test the indicator, try to visually confirm the gear position. The autopilot holds the aircraft steady at 2,000 feet, or so they believe. Outside the windows, the glittering lights of Miami fade into the distance. Below them, the Everglades stretch endlessly, a vast black void broken only by occasional patches of marsh grass reflecting moonlight. The plane flies on, the crew's eyes fixed on a tiny green light, searching for answers to a problem that seems so small, so manageable, so easily solved. What they don't realize is that the real problem isn't the light at all. Inside the cockpit, the investigation continues. Flight Engineer Repo suggests they send someone into the avionics bay beneath the cockpit, where they might visually confirm if the nose gear is actually down. It's a cramped, dark space filled with cables and hydraulic lines, but it offers a direct view of the gear mechanism. Second Officer Donadio volunteers and descends into the tight compartment with a flashlight. Above him, the 3 pilots continue troubleshooting. They twist the light assembly, check connections, and discuss alternatives. The burned bulb has become their entire world. Minutes tick by. The cabin remains calm. Passengers notice nothing unusual, just a slight delay in landing, perhaps weather or traffic. Captain Loft contacts Miami Approach, explaining their situation. The controller is understanding, granting them all the time they need. Circle over the Everglades, sort out the problem, then come back for landing. Standard procedure. No emergency, just caution. But something is happening that no one in the cockpit notices. The autopilot, designed to hold altitude automatically, has a subtle vulnerability. If bumped or partially disengaged, it can switch to a mode where it no longer holds altitude but instead responds to control inputs. And in the confined space of the cockpit, with multiple hands reaching across the panel to work on the landing gear light, someone's elbow or knee nudges the control column ever so slightly. The autopilot accepts this as a command. The nose dips, barely perceptible. The descent begins, 200 feet per minute, gentle, almost imperceptibly. The kind of rate you wouldn't feel in your body, wouldn't see out the window on a dark night over featureless swamp. The altimeter needles begin their slow rotation. 2,000 feet becomes 1,900, then 1800, but the crew's eyes are elsewhere. On a tiny green light, on the gear indicator panel, on the avionics bay below, where Donadio searches with his flashlight. First Officer Stockstill glances at his instruments. Does he notice something? Does a flicker of doubt cross his mind? If he sees the altitude change, he doesn't vocalize it. Perhaps he assumes the captain has descended intentionally. Perhaps he's too focused on the gear problem. Perhaps the human mind, so absorbed in solving one puzzle, simply filters out contradictory information. 1,700 feet. 1,600. The Everglades rise up to meet them in the darkness. Sawgrass and water, illuminated only by... The TriStar continues its ghost-like descent, engines humming normally, passengers unaware, crew fixated on a problem that suddenly seems insignificant compared to what's about to unfold. 1,500 feet. 1,400. Still, no one calls it out. The cockpit culture of 1972 doesn't encourage junior officers to question captains. Even if they notice something wrong, speaking up requires overcoming invisible barriers of hierarchy and protocol. The aircraft descends into the night, carrying holiday travelers, experienced pilots, and one burned-out landing gear light toward a catastrophic encounter with the Everglades. Time is running out. 1,300 feet. The TriStar continues its silent descent through the black Florida night. In the avionics bay, Second Officer Donadio struggles with his flashlight, trying to get a clear view of the nose gear mechanism. His voice crackles over the intercom, uncertain, needing more time. Captain Loft adjusts his position, leaning closer to the instrument panel. Flight Engineer Repo holds the disassembled light fixture up to the cockpit lights, examining it from every angle. First Officer Stockstill monitors the systems, but his attention drifts between multiple tasks. The landing gear, the light, the flight path. Too many variables for a human mind to track simultaneously. 1,000 feet, 900 feet. The swamp below is invisible in the darkness, a black canvas that offers no reference points, no visual cues that the ground is approaching. This is the danger of night flying over featureless terrain. The eyes can deceive, the mind can assume, and instruments, if not carefully monitored, become just another piece of background noise. Then, suddenly, a sound cuts through the cockpit concentration, a chime. The altitude alert system designed to warn pilots when they deviate significantly from their assigned altitude. It's a half-second tone, easy to miss amid the ambient noise, easy to dismiss if you're focused elsewhere. Does anyone hear it? The cockpit voice recorder will later reveal that if they do, no one acknowledges it. The chime fades. The descent continues. 800 feet, 700 feet. The rate of descent remains steady, gentle, There's no violent dive, no screaming alarms, no dramatic fight with the controls. Just a slow, unnoticed drift toward disaster. The kind of accident that happens not because of catastrophic failure, but because of accumulated small oversights. Suddenly, First Officer Stockstill's voice breaks the concentration. We did something to the altitude. His tone is uncertain, questioning. He's noticed. Finally, someone has seen the altimeter. But there's hesitation in his words. Is he really seeing what he thinks he's seeing? Should he be more forceful? Captain Loft looks up from the landing gear indicator. For a split second, his mind processes this new information. The altitude. They've descended. How far? How fast? His eyes find the altimeter. 500 feet. The realization hits like ice water. They're not at 2,000 feet. They're barely above the swamp. Captain Loft's hands move toward the controls. But physics has already taken over. At their current descent rate, at their current altitude, there are only seconds remaining. Hey, what's happening here? Someone shouts. The autopilot is disconnected. Hands pull back on the control column. Engines spool up to full power. The nose begins to rise. But the Everglades are already there, rushing up in the darkness. Sawgrass and black water and mud waiting just below the fuselage. The TriStar is out of time. The impact is catastrophic. The left wing strikes first, shearing off as the aircraft plows into the soft earth and water of the Everglades at over 200 miles per hour. The fuselage breaks apart, sections tumbling through the darkness, scattering passengers, seats, and luggage across a quarter-mile of fire erupts from ruptured fuel tanks, illuminating the horror in brief, flickering bursts of orange light. When the chaos settles, rescue teams face an unprecedented challenge. The crash site is in one of the most remote, inaccessible areas of South Florida. No roads, only sawgrass, water, and darkness. Coast Guard helicopters arrive first, their searchlights sweeping across the devastation. Survivors call out from the wreckage, injured, trapped, desperate. By dawn, the full scope becomes clear. 11 people have perished, including Captain Loft, Flight Engineer Repo, and many passengers who were simply returning home from Christmas celebrations. 75 survive, many with severe injuries. It is the first crash of a wide-body aircraft in aviation history, and it shocks the world. Investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board arrive and begin the painstaking work of reconstruction. They recover the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder, the black boxers that will tell the story of what happened in those final minutes. What they discover is both simple and profound. The nose landing gear was down and locked the entire time. The green light was simply burned out, a $2 bulb. The crew's intense focus on this minor malfunction created a phenomenon called task fixation, where attention narrows so completely on one problem that other critical information is ignored or missed. While they troubleshot the light, the autopilot had been inadvertently partially disengaged, allowing the aircraft to descend slowly and steadily. The altitude alert had sounded, but in the distraction, no one responded. First Officer Stockstill noticed the problem, but precious seconds were lost in uncertain communication. By the time corrective action began, the laws of physics had already sealed their fate. There was simply not enough altitude remaining to recover. The investigation reveals no mechanical failure, no act of terrorism, no weather event, just a series of small human errors compounded by distraction, task fixation, and inadequate cockpit resource management. It's a painful lesson. In aviation, minor problems can mask major dangers when situational awareness is lost. Flight 401 changes aviation forever. Airlines implement new training protocols focused on crew resource management, encouraging junior officers to speak up immediately when they notice problems. Altitude alert systems are improved and made impossible to ignore. Autopilot designs are modified to prevent inadvertent partial disengagement. 101 lives were lost over a burned-out light bulb, but their legacy is a safer sky for everyone who flies today. In the darkness of the Everglades on December 29, 1972, the importance of attention, communication, and never losing sight of the fundamentals became written in tragedy, a lesson that aviation would never forget. The black box revealed the truth, and the truth changed everything.